my name is Leonard Milholland, Applications Engineer with SMSC. Today I'm going to talk about a few of the frequently observed issues when it comes to layout as it concerns the RightTouch family of devices. Namely, the goals of layout for both 4-layer and 2-layer designs, some of the basics of the must-do, as well as some of the do-not elements of a design. And finally, I'll talk about a few overlay quick tips. First, I'd like to talk about the goals of a RightTouch layout. Number one, you want a high delta count. And you want a high delta count for various finger sizes, from the very small finger to the very large finger. This is very critical and is very dependent upon the overlay thickness. So you need to know that from the beginning. Number two, you want a low noise environment. This is both internal to the board as well as external. So grounding is important as well as signal-to-signal integrity. And lastly, you want a low base capacitance. This is achieved through grounding as well as trace layout. Let's talk about a 4-layer design. Layer 1 begins by placing the sensors as well as the ground for the surface. This is the closest surface that the user will be touching. Layer 2 is where you run the sensors, the sensor traces, as well as any lines that you can't run on layer 4. Layer 3 is where you run the ground plane, and whether it's solid or crosshatched depends on the thickness of your board and the overall goals of your board. Layer 4 is where you place all the components as well as run all the LED lines, the power supply lines, and the communication lines. Additionally, we recommend placing ground in any unused areas of layer 4. Next up, we'd like to talk about a 2-layer design. We begin with layer 1, which again is where the CS pads go, as well as ground, to shield all of the lines behind it. On layer 2, you place the components, the LED lines, power supply lines, and components, as well as the communication lines. And now I'd like to talk to you about some of the must-do elements of the layout design. First up, we recommend that you use FR4. You can use obviously a 2-layer or a 4-layer design. And we are in the research stages of flex circuits and other materials. Number 2, for very thin designs, we recommend a 15% crosshatch on all ground layers to keep the base capacitance low for the entire system. Number 3, we recommend that all unused CS inputs as well as LED inputs be grounded so as to prevent external noise from entering the system. Number 4, CS pads can be any shape you desire. The shape is not critical, but the overall pad dimension, surface area, is critical and is dependent directly on your overlay thickness. Number 5, LEDs can be placed in the center of the pad with low side effects, provided that the traces are routed appropriately. And finally, number 6, we recommend that all bypass caps be placed directly near the VDD pin of the device. This ensures that any noise that is injected on the VDD line gets shunted before it enters the RightTouch device. And now I'd like to talk about a few of the do-nots. Number 1, do not run CS and LED traces parallel on either adjacent or similar layers. Crosstalk can occur between these two signals. Number 2, do not pour solid ground plane underneath a CS pad, especially in a thin layer design. This can cause an excessive base capacitance issue where it may disable the sensor altogether. Number 3, do not place CS pads closer than 1.3 millimeters adjacent to each other. Any closer than that, and you could get crosstalk or unintentional button presses based on the size of the user's finger. And finally, I'd like to talk about a few overlay quick tips. Number 1, Never ever use metallic overlays. SMSC recommends a non-metallic overlay with a dielectric constant of between 2.0 and 3.0. This will ensure that your design is effective and robust. Number 2, keep your overlay thicknesses to less than 5 millimeters. Any thicker than 5 millimeters and your buttons become prohibitively large. Number 3, use double-sided permanent adhesive to attach the button board to the overlay. Ensure that there are near zero air bubbles in the application. This will ensure consistency from button to button as well as from lot to lot in your assembly line process. Number 4, ensure that the board does not bend under mechanical pressure typical of a user press. Following these basic guidelines will get your design with SMSC RightTouch to market quickly.
For more information, visit smsc.com.